This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air. And welcome to the OI podcast, the Otago Institute for the Arts and Science podcast, brought to you by the Otago branch of the Royal Society NZ. Kia ora, I'm Dr. Barb, and I'm here in the studio again, returned from all my adventures to, just as is wont to do, just pop in right at the last minute, the end of the year. This is our last live show for this year, so I'm just here after all the hard work that Trudi's put in over the last 2 months, just to swoop in at the end. Good morning, good afternoon, Trudi.
Kia ora, everybody, and I'm Trudi, and this show is brought to you by Otago Access Radio, or 105.4 FM, because I think Dr. Barb's been away for so long, she's got that bit of the tagline. But yay, we're back, she's back, yay.
We're back and we're packed, and luckily I have managed to get the microphones on.
Yeah.
But I am a renewed person.
She is renewed, she's got some really amazing Dame Edna-looking glasses, but
yes,
they are
fancy glasses. So I'm sort of ageing a little bit, as we all are. And, of course, also the OI podcast is ageing. And we are now up. This is our 111th episode.
Woohoo!
Woohoo. And, of course, this year we've done a lot of extra episodes as we went through the local elections. We did a massive local
election special. That was fantastic.
Which was, really.
And we got a special award for that by the studio manager, so thank you.
The manager's special award.
Yes.
So that was very, very privileged to have that. And very privileged, I would say, to work with the wonderful folk here at the Otago Access Radio.
And it's amazing, like when we went to the awards, and Barbara couldn't make it because she was overseas, but it was just amazing to see the different communities reflected in that award ceremony. It was quite a privilege to be there, even if you didn't win or didn't win. It's just amazing that the opportunity, the voice that, community radio, these kind of things give to different parts of the community. And us, of course. Sorry.
And the diversity, I think, as well, like the sheer quantity of different shows that are out there, which is huge, and the diversity of those shows. So it is amazing. And we've sort of set this whole hour today aside as a bit of a retrospective look, both of the OI podcast and of 2025 itself. So Trudy and I have both just come here from a funeral of the amazing Calvin Lloyd. So all those listeners out there who knew Calvin Lloyd, everyone's very sad at his passing. And we would like to dedicate this show to Calvin Lloyd and his family and friends, and also to... We've had quite a tough couple of months, haven't we?
Well, it has. It's been quite a dent made in the local science community, because along with Calvin, we had Phil Glassy from what was GNS Science, and who we interviewed for
the Otago Regional Council.
Yeah.
And he was actually one of my picks for the Otago Regional Council, because he would have brought a wealth of knowledge to that role, and he's clearly one of those people, or he clearly was one of those people who went into the whole process for the right reasons, as he did everything, because he wanted to make a difference. And offer their skills to things. And I think that's a very unifying point between him and Calvin there.
And both for the community, because some people want to make a difference, but it's their own gain or their business gain. But both of them were very community-minded. It was all about the community, yeah. And the other person that's perhaps not quite so well known is Chris Adams, who was a emeritus professor, I think that's the title, at GNS Science, who lived in Portobello, and I've got to be honest, off the top of my head, I can't remember what Chris did, but in his field, I know, because he was a very early adopter of work here in New Zealand, originally from UK, but also a prolific artist and all sorts of other aspects to his life that you don't always see in the workplace. Some people have a stereotype of what a scientist is, but I find that most of them, including Dr. Barb here, are quite versatile. They kind of have various interests across a whole host of areas of interest from, actually craft work, art, making stuff as well as the intellectual interest in the world around them.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
I think scientists in general have been very poorly represented by Hollywood over the years, and before that comics as well. I mean, every scientist in every comic is generally a bad person who's in a lab coat, and being an ecologist, I don't know that many.
Well, it's interesting because one of the very early photos of Chris at work on the wall, it's him in a lab coat with test tubes, and beakers behind you, which kind of thing. Oh, that looks really exciting, but I'm not sure, like when you start to read chemistry stuff, it's a lot of, you have to be quite specific about what kind of things you're mixing together, otherwise it can all go terribly wrong. But I think, so people think, so they're in white coats are kind of straight-laced, or as in, what's the word, like straight-jacketed, tied to a process, but then there's this other...
I think that the crux of science, though, for me at least, is the creativity of making an experiment, of curiosity, of wanting to know how this thing works, why this does this, how does this work, and that goes across fields. And I think it's that curiosity driven and the creative process of figuring out a way to test that, to figure out if that's true or not. And that's, to me, how it's the unifying fact across all different disciplines of science, and it's really where I think science and the fine arts come together, and that's
true.
Where you get that whole creativity of the sort of classic Leonardo da Vinci type creativity.
Jungian people who
and there's this kind of it's about understanding the universe that we live in, and that I think goes across arts and science and the humanities as well, because it's all about understanding humanity and our place in the universe and and how it works. And, latterly, in the last 150 years, about how we reduce our impact and reverse some of the more tragic impacts that we as a race have had on the place that we live.
A species, perhaps.
As a species.
And I think, that's really important, that when we depict scientists, why are they in lab coats behind equipment? Because that doesn't always reflect the curiosity aspect,
I think it's a very strange, to me, coming from a botany ecology science background, it's a very strange stereotype, because almost nothing of what I have done in my scientific career has been lab-based. Our laboratory is the field, and sometimes we come in with soil samples, or we're investigating things. But and I feel that the whole white coat idea, particularly as someone who doesn't wear white well, is a very weird idea, and I think it's off-putting for a lot of people as well. I think it's something that's kind of come across from the medical sciences.
Oh, that would make sense.
And I think the white coat, and people correct me if I'm wrong here because I'm just ad-libbing, but I think the white coat came across from, originated in medicine as you can see where the dirt is, basically. So you can have a big coat, all the blood and gore goes on it, and then you can see if it's dirty, basically. And also white is one of the easiest colours to clean, because you can just bleach and starch and bleach and starch, whereas colours always fade and you lose the colours. So I think that's why bed sheets and tablecloths and linen are all classically white, is because you can just boil and bleach them, and then they go white again, and you can see where the stains are. And I think, unfortunately, that came across to science. But I think for me, it puts a wall between people and science that's artificial and doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because there's no reason why lab coats need to be white if you're working, like in a non-medical area. And even the way that we clean stuff now wider. And you look at the uniforms, like you used to have starched white nurses' uniforms. Now they wear like navy blue and they're just, I think washing and being able to wash stuff quickly is probably more important when it comes to that kind of thing than it looks like. Yeah,
it's one of those things I would get rid of. And people sometimes ask me why my wedding dress was burgundy red velvet, and some of that at least goes back to having to wear a white lab coat as a undergraduate.
Well, it's interesting. My sister's wedding dress was a beautiful red because she was marrying a Navy officer and his formal dress was a white.
Oh, you can have white and white.
So you can have white and white, but it suited her. It looked really great. But.
Wow, crazy.
So look, see all the things you find out when you listen to
the
OI podcast.
But I think, that kind of curiosity and why and finding out things and understanding the world, I think that is very much something that all three of these amazing folk who sadly have passed away this year truly believed in a lot and stood for with integrity and hard work. And I think it's a good show to dedicate to them, I think, because we're looking back, we're in a bit of a retrospective mood at the end of a long year for many people. And I thought we'd start just on a more positive note because, positive.
Going forward. Looking back, but we're going to go
looking
forward.
Back, but going forward. Looking back to go forward. Just thinking about some, and of course all of our podcasts are available. They're all available on everything. They're on Spotify, they're on Apple Podcasts, they're on iHeart. They're available from the OAR website. You can go there and just search for OI podcast and you'll get to all of them. You can listen to all of them. You can follow, you can click, you can write little reviews of us and say, I wish that Barbara Anderson would stop talking so much, Dr. Barb. Give the person a chance to talk, please. Let Trudi have a word every now and again. Anyway, we did go away and think of our top 10 interviews. I think, Trudi, you've just done this last year, have you?
Yeah. Oh, and I snuck one in from the 2023 election special.
Okay, nice. So shall we start at the bottom with Trudy's ones? Or have you got them in order?
No, they're just the ones I liked.
Okay. Because I'm a great listener of This Is Entertainment, That Was Entertainment. I can't even remember what the name of it is, but I listen to it all the time. The Richard Osborne from the Murder series and Marina. God, it sounds like I don't listen to this any time at all, but I listen to every single podcast. Anyway, every Thursday they do a question and answer, and he's always giving her a hassle because she starts at the top instead of the bottom of the 10 or 5 or 6 or 3 or however many they're ranking, and blows the punchline. So anyway, we're just going to go through some of our favourite ones. Trudy, I'm going to let you start.
So I haven't ranked them. I just picked out the ones I liked. And the one that I liked is when we were talking to, and I was in such a rush to go to the funeral, when I printed off my list, I've left it at home. But it was about crime and punishment as part of the election series.
Ah, James Collins.
Yes. And because part of that conversation we talked about what the notion of being just is. And you think about what does that mean nowadays in a society, and if you're going to court, who is the prosecutor working for and what is the just outcome?
And of course, this we're talking here about the previous election special, not the 2025 one. This was the
central government
elections. Yeah.
And then I found a credit card in the street one day, and I handed it in to the bank. And as I handed it in the bank, they said to me, "Oh, thank you for being so honest." And I found myself saying, well, what am I going to do it anyway? And I thought, well, that's a really weird thing to say. And then I thought there must be some marginal utility around crime, which then led me thinking about James. And then made me think, we haven't interviewed any economists.
Yes, I think economists at the top of the list for next year. I'm really keen to have some. Well, we did have Lisa Ellis as part of that same special about taxes.
But yes. But I think there's a whole lot of stuff in economics around people's. It's really around behaviour and it's around how you make choices.
Yeah, and of course economics is a little bit your specialist topic there, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say it was my specialist topic. It's a topic of interest, and I thought, so I'm not going to risk anything trying to use a credit card I found on the street. But then I thought, what level of crime would I go to when I reach my marginal utility where I get more benefit from the crime than the rest?
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is quite interesting.
I think it's quite interesting that there's some people would say there's no level I would go to. But I think
it depends on what happens. If something happened to your family or,
I wouldn't say never. I think it definitely depends on circumstances and also there's sort of crime that people say is like a
harmless, like it doesn't impact anybody.
But low impact one. I mean, I'm not sure that really exists, but
So anyway, the whole notion of what is just is quite an interesting.
And it comes back to that whole South African apartheid retribution and reconciliation type idea, and the notion of apologies and how much is an apology worth, and does it actually mean anything if the person apologising is apologising on behalf of a government, but wasn't actually there when the atrocity or whatever happened. The thing that they're apologising for. But I think we need to think as a society a lot more about justice and integrity and apologies and just the way that we kind of conduct ourselves as a society.
It's all around
behaviour and societal expectations and that brings us back to politics, of course, and how we expect our politicians to behave and what level of misconduct we are going to allow society to accept, basically. And, and I think that really is a thing that as a society, it seems like each individual person isn't actually doing anything. But I think nothing happens if individuals don't
do anything.
And don't say and I think in some ways I think it's one of the bravest things that people can do is to say not to someone who's in another camp, but to your family or friends, hey, actually
pull them up on that.
Just pull them up, not controversially, not confrontationally, but gently and kindly and just say, hey, do you realise how racist that sounds? Do you realise how sexist that sounds? Do you really mean to say that?
Is that what you really mean?
Is that what you really mean?
Yeah.
Do you mean that to sound the way that comes across? And I think if we did that more as a society and just held the line a little bit stronger sometimes with our nearest and dearest and, colleagues at work as well.
Exactly.
Just...
Because there's the saying, bad things happen when good men do nothing.
Yes, it was actually one of Calvin's favourite sayings.
Was it?
Actually, it was, yes.
So another one was, when is the conspiracy theory with Prof. Charles Pigden? And the only reason I picked this one is because he talked about Karl Popper. Who came here from
he came out
Austria the late 1930s. So, and he came here so he could give up a place for one of his fellow professors to go to the UK and Cambridge, and they were both Jewish. So given that it was 1939, they were leaving Austria, you really have lived under a rock if you don't know why that's so important. But the reason why I thought it's really interesting, he talked about Karl Popper, and when I was in Ghent in Belgium earlier in the year, every Sunday they have a bookstall. And on the bookstore along the river, here were two of Karl Popper's books. I thought, I'm getting them. I bought them. And so they were my
holiday reading.
Well, souvenirs from Belgium, along with the very nice Belgian beer. But so I bought
You didn't go for the chocolates?
No, I think the beer was nice.
I really liked that interview because I liked the discussion that we had about how can you tell when a conspiracy theory is a bad conspiracy? Like, there's lots of conspiracies. Almost every political upheaval you have is, and we touched on this in the interview, it is the result of conspiracy, because basically if you've got three or more people talking about something, making a plan, then it's a conspiracy. But when we talk about in common parlance, when we talk about conspiracy theories, we really mean things that are patently not true. And just to précis that a little bit, but I agree with Trudi. I do recommend that interview, because one of the ways is to see who gains. It goes back to that kind of game thing. So
who's going to win if
you've got something that requires a large number of people to have kept a secret, and they have nothing to gain from having not kept that secret, then the chances are it's a conspiracy theory.
Yes.
And that's really, and it was interesting because it was that it was really delved into the heart of philosophy, which is thinking, how can you actually test these ideas and what actually makes a conspiracy theory a conspiracy theory.
And it was really interesting because it pulled me up because I always thought, I didn't believe in conspiracy theories because who can keep a secret? Instead, there's a cock-up theory where somebody overhears their manager or their leader saying this would be a good idea. But their leader hasn't actually said, I want you to go ahead and do it, whereas that they then pick up and go ahead and do it. And by the time it's in play, it's too late to stop. And it's probably more of a cock-up than a conspiracy, whereas that notion of the conspiracy is who keeps the secret and who gains, I think it was a really useful definition and discussion to have.
Yeah. And it actually comes back, one of our really early, and it's not the first one, but it's the second episode that we did, was with Dr. John Kerr, Conspiracy Theories. And that was way back. Oh, I can't even
Might have been before my time.
It was well before your time.
What were we talking about?
It was actually number 2, and it was, let me see here, the 18th of November 2022. Whoa. It was with Dr. John Kerr.
And we would have been deep in conspiracy.
We were talking about conspiracy theories back then. And again, that was from a scientific point of view. And the very first one was communicating through the noise. That was our very first episode, way back on the 4th of November 2022. And it was amazing when we had the amazing Dasha from the Science Media Centre, and
amazing.
We were talking with Science Media Centre folk about why we need to have, it was kind of the essence of the show, which I think we're still there, is that we need to have people who really know things about things, whatever those things are, science, arts, mataranga Māori, humanities, whatever, talking about them and, communicating those real things where they've spent time researching it, understanding it, the context around it. They know what they're talking about, and it's our chance to sort of ask them questions about their field. And some of it's light-hearted, some of it's a bit more deep, but it's about that continuing education, that curiosity, that knowledge, passing on that knowledge. And that's really, I think, for me, that's the crux of this show. And I love to hear new things. I love to talk about various issues. Obviously, sometimes politics is topical, but I think politics is really, it's there because politics for me is just a summation of society, because it's kind of it goes back to values. It's what we believe in and how we think that we should have a society that works, and it affects everyone in everyone's daily lives. So I would never want to be a political show, because I really like the breadth. I like the mix of interviews that we've had over the years. And and I do like some of my favourite episodes. I would have to say are the ones where we have more than one person on, and we have ideas from a mixture of arts and sciences and mataranga Māori. But I'm hogging the speaker again, Trudi. What's your next one on your list?
So I was going to move into haute couture.
Haute couture.
Because I really like the one when we looked at Otago and, what was his name?
The Central Otago with not Jane Malthus.
Yeah, no, it was Jane Malthus. Yes. And was it Len Cook? No, he's a statistician, about the collection of dresses. The guy dressed Miss New Zealand, or the Miss New Zealand competition.
The Eden Awards and the Dunedin.
We got there.
Sorry.
Because I do like haute couture. Well, I think it's lovely to look at. I wouldn't necessarily wear any of it. It's not very practical for me. But it was just lovely thinking that something that people think is so mainstream, Central European, the catwalks of Europe, Paris or whatever, is like Dunedin. And
I'm pretty sure that exhibition is still on at Toitu, actually.
Oh, is it?
With the dresses there. Yeah, it's set for, I think it's a couple of years it's going to run for there.
That's, yeah.
In their sort of, where the
On
the
one of the galleries.
Yeah, one of the galleries there. And it's absolutely amazing. And there's a gorgeous book that Jane and the photographer have put together, which I actually got a copy of the book because the photography in it is amazing. It's landscapes all through Central Otago with the models wearing items from that collection, and it is an absolute, like, if you've got any nostalgia about the 70s and the 60s, or the 80s, I should say, the 70s and the 80s, then it's absolutely gorgeous clothing, and it's so diverse. Like, it's got all the sequins and the viscose and the crazy 70s kind of flares and just in colours everywhere, but it's also got that real sustainability element running through it, because he had this really amazing need to showcase New Zealand products. And of course he came from a farm.
Dempsey's Pathway, so you kind of think, and
it's really, heartland farming country. And some of those outfits are made from wool from his farm that were spun and woven or knitted. There's an absolutely gorgeous knitted one there. And there's leather and there's wallaby chamois. There's this absolute products that were really made in New Zealand and really speak to that fashion and farming and that New Zealand product sort of base as well, and have a really sustainable base to them. And then there's sequins and viscose and stuff. But Jane also
viscose were quite new at the time. So it was it's kind of trend-setting. Where can we take this? So
it was a fabulous interview because, of course, Jane is absolutely fabulous to interview and knows everything about the topics. It was fabulous. Okay, moving on.
So, then I kind of thought, now where do I go? So I went to the Mali because I don't know the name of that bush, but I also think that was really impressive how different groups can work together collectively to preserve a large area. So
this was the one with Dr. Wendy Stubbs coming out from Adelaide was actually coming out to visit us in Kelvin. Hello, Wendy, if you're listening to this. Thank you very much for that interview. As friends and family of mine will know, anyone who comes to visit who has some claim to fame will be on the show. And I agree. It was fantastic. And it was while we were doing Wild Dunedin, I think, was on when I was talking to Wendy, or we were organised. There was, I can't actually remember exactly the timing around it, but we were talking about Wild Dunedin and the kind of mirror of the festival for Wild Dunedin here, and they have a similar one there in South Australia, and the kind of the differences between Australian and New Zealand vegetation and our flora and fauna, all the animals that we have, and how that means that the ecology and the conservation and the way we do those things are very different, because the processes, the ecosystems are very different, the communities are very different.
So the questions you're trying to answer can be different.
Yeah, so the overall aim can be the same, but the way that the questions that you're answering, the way that you're getting to that are completely different. And quite often with Australia and New Zealand, because Australia is a very fire-dominated ecosystem, especially in South Australia there where Wendy works. And so it's not about stopping fires, it's about managing fires so that they are allowed to burn some places and where they need to, and the intensity and the length and all, taking in all of those factors. Whereas New Zealand natural systems are not so prone to fire, shall we say.
No.
But of course we've got some things, particularly I think, to learn from Australia in that space, because with climate change we are going to experience more fire risk, especially along the east coast here. So.
And I also thought it was interesting that rather than competing against different organisations for a limited pool of funds, it was about this group is specialist in this area, this group might be specialist in an area. How do we pool our resources together? So you could bid, but you will bid kind of under a larger collective umbrella, and that kind of always appeals to my board's
it did seem to be a very mature approach to how best to serve the community and the ecosystem. So I thought, I agree. Fantastic interview.
And then I went a bit Frankenstein, and then I put, anything that involves ancient DNA, because I thought, it's kind of a relatively new technique to, any of that kind of DNA stuff from fossils that we talked about.
And we have actually had a few fossil and DNA talks on, because we had Nick Rawlins on talking about the Murgassa duck.
The wacky duck, yeah.
The wacky duck.
And, and I thought, this is kind of at the forefront, or, the beginning of the forefront of how we do research, and it opens up a whole new field around how we can answer the questions we're keen on asking. We had the DNA drive people on.
And, of course, Michael Knapp with talking about the kaka and the relatives of the kaka and the DNA around that.
And I just thought, here we go. It's kind of like we're moving into a whole different area. So, that got my Frankenstein groove on a wee bit. Yeah.
I like your Frankenstein groove.
And so,
Is that your roundup, or have you got...
Yeah, no, that's my roundup, because there's a whole host, and I thought, it was really hard. So they're the ones I kind of pulled out. But I have to say that when I was going back over the list, I thought, we have covered so much ground and had so many interesting people. So what were your picks?
Well, I'm going to say I really did love the Christmas episode that we did last year. And the quiz...
I didn't mention that one because we're going to play it again.
The quiz questions are up on the Facebook page.
Cool.
And I can put the quiz questions up first on the episode description as well. So the quiz questions are there, and the answers to all the quiz questions are in the interview. So it's like a little bit of fun to have if you happen to be listening to the podcast, if you turned it on the 26th when you're sitting around eating cold turkey sandwiches
recovering from
the eating of the day before, or if you're like many families and you split your Christmas activities over 1 or 2 or 3 days, however many it takes to get round the various family parts. It's a great interview, and I really love that interview because we had both Janice Lord there from the botany department, Professor Janice Lord, mihi to you, and also Matthew Kiori there for the same one, and it was really great to have that bit of combination of mataranga Māori and humanities and science all in the same episode and blended together, and I think that gives you a more well-rounded episode. So I think that's definitely one of my favourite ones for that reason. And I would say, looking back, the Bug of the Year one. So we had 2 Bug of the Year ones. We had one just with Jenny Yant. And did we have Colin on that one when it was being launched right at the start of the competition? And then the week that the competition finished, we had the whole group from the Velvet Underground, the Peripatus Velvet Worm group, who were the winners for Bug of the Year for 2025. So we had
Only Lau
from the museum,
and Peter
Dearden and PhD student, and also Jenny came back on.
Yes.
So we had Jenny there, and then you and I. Is that right? And we talked a lot about the poetry. The competition that went with it as well, because they did run a simultaneous poetry, and I loved the poetry that went with it, and the haiku that people came up with to go with the various different contestants in the Bug of the Year,
and the strategy the museum used to, kids could go in and make bugs, and
And speaking, I think it was Tracy, was it? Oh God, sorry, I'm very sorry, I've lost my notes as well. We're totally disorganised here.
Oh, no, we're being retro.
We're being retro. Oh, my goodness. Yes, but I really did love talking and the science that's happening with that group and just finding out, like, the behaviour of these amazing, amazing creatures that really are larger than life. So I think, that is definitely one of my highlights, is that Velvet Underground episode.
And the whole Bug of the Year concept, gives kind of new life or new meaning to these critters, who are actually quite attractive.
Yes,
when you look at them. Yeah.
Watch out for it, because it is coming up again. It is coming round. It's coming round.
We were going to do something.
No, not this year. We're entering next year. We missed out on the cutout. Gosh, it's very quick. It's very...
Well, 2025 is just kind of...
it has just gone past. So I would say that another one of my favourites is the South Dunedin Futures with Simon Cox and Jonathan Rowe. So
we did two
of those together. We had both of them in. It was over the school holidays. It was unbelievably lucky that we managed to get both of them. They were both had simultaneously but independently come into work on one of those days that's not a statutory holiday, but it's between statutory holidays. And they had both come into the office, separate offices, separate buildings, separate campuses, to get some work done. And I phoned up and said, I'm really keen to do something on South Dunedin and what's happening with South Dunedin, the context of it, what's the geology, what's the hydrology of it, what's the land like, what's the latest research on that, and what's the latest in what the community wants and the proposals that the DCC are putting forward and how the community thinks about those proposals, what the options are, what the costs for those options are. And they very kindly decided to both come in for both interviews rather than doing one and then the other.
Yeah,
and it worked really well because they worked together and they were able to add to each other's discussion. And so I would really, really recommend anyone who lives in Dunedin should listen to those two episodes. So they are fantastic episodes. As was the Local Water Done Well with David Ward, which was about the local water infrastructure. And I think, that's why our rates are going up. Is because of the infrastructure, the local water infrastructure. So in a nutshell, that's the answer. I really liked the Wairarapa Wool weekend, I must say.
I was going to put that down. I thought, I bet Barbara will pick the one because she had a fab time at the
did.
Not the episode, perhaps, but
I had an absolutely fabulous time, and it was absolutely amazing because we had Gudrun Johnson there as the superstar guest for the Wairarapa Wool Festival, all the way out from North America, where she is the Shetland trader representative for the Shetland yarn. And I won't mention the brand. There's two brands there, and I won't mention which one is hers, but it's one of the J ones. Anyway, we had a fantastic, and we had the opportunity to either do a series of short interviews, and there were, I think, 4 podcasters there, and we had the opportunity to either do each a small interview, because obviously time's limited, or to combine our times and do one interview with all of us at the same time, and we decided to combine our time, and it was I really enjoyed that, and it was great to hear about the history, and it's one of those kind of humanities arts interviews, which was just kind of
it was amazing, and
just amazing,
and the wall, and because we were sitting here looking at charts, which was a bit didn't really work on radio, but that's a beautiful
the pictures
colour.
are there on the Facebook episode. Anyway, we can pop those up again. I did like the public toilets with Alison Breeze.
That was on my list as well.
It was so interesting.
Yeah.
The public
toilets.
Who
knew? Yeah.
Who knew? No, I really loved the public toilets with and to be fair, I really loved the both the name and place.
Yes,
with Dr. Megan Porticki.
Yeah.
I really loved that one, and I really loved the one that we did with Pauline on the geography and the name. It's going back. It's not this year one. It's one from previous. But I really loved that we did with Paulette from Ōtāko there on the Kaitahu geography and all the names that are coming out. And I'm a big proponent. I think we should just bite the bullet, so to speak, and just remake all the signs as they come to the end of their life, just as a matter of fact. We don't need public consultation on every sign that we change. Just change all the signs so that the whole of New Zealand, start with the South Island if you have to, just becomes bilingual about names.
Well,
I just don't see that there needs to be any controversy over it.
Well, exactly. The funeral today, everybody got up and introduced themselves to rail.
And there's no fuss about it.
No fuss. Nothing whatsoever. It's just so mainstream. Why do we get out?
We don't need to. We don't need. Yes. No. So Paulette, that was a fantastic interview. So thank you very much. And we've had a few really amazing interviews through Mataranga Māori. We had Pairo Warbrick came as part of last year's, last year's 2024 general elections.
Oh, yes.
So came in talking about Māori land and land issues. And that's really insightful because I think that's a real failing of our social studies and history classes at high school and middle school here, because we need to understand our history as New Zealand history a lot better than we do as a society. And I think through that understanding we get a much better ability to live together. And I think that was a fantastic interview. So if you do have time, definitely.
And along that line, halfway through that book about Maori in World War II by Dr.
Angela Wanhala, professor now, Angela Wanhala.
And that is an amazing, it's so easy to read.
Yes.
But so it's lovely written. But I think it's really, because it's in World War II, and if you think, it's so 1940, so 100 years of settlement. So it's kind of a snapshot, a picture between then and now. And I can see in that how things are organised. And when we talked with who just become an honorary professor at the university,
Edward Ellison.
I can see how their approach and to working together and working in conjunction with regional councils, and how the approach that these organisations took during World War II to contribute to something which is kind of really, I thought they were very, the rest of New Zealand was very lucky. I probably would if I was them, telling them to bugger off. It's not our problem kind of thing. But I just see, their organisation and the hapu and how the different units came together. And I think, that's an interesting stepping stone from like very little Pākehā influence to more Pākehā influence, and then to the future. So I think that's
interesting.
And I to read. I must finish it so you can read it.
And we will have Angela Wanhala, Professor Angela Wanhala now, and back on the show next year to discuss that book and others. But I would definitely recommend that Edward Ellison was part of our local election special issues. The interview with Matua Edward Ellison from Otago there, but it is definitely worth a listen in view of the upcoming general elections, because I think most, if not all, of his points do stand for just general. I mean, it was a wide-ranging sort of general politics conversation. But do check back, because back in 2023 in April, we did talking about mana wahine with Professor Angela Wanhala, and that was a fabulous interview because she is very easy to talk to, and of course, as almost to a T, our guests really know their stuff. So it's a lot of things in there that I either hadn't thought about or hadn't known. So that was actually it was definitely one of my top interviews there as well.
And I think that's the benefit, or what I get out of the show, is that you might know something a little bit about something. When you come away, you're either got a lot of things to think about, or you're upskilled.
And just to go through the list
what
there,
else you got?
Sandwiched between Professor Angela Wanhala and Paulette is Prof. Sir Alan Mark. So that was a fantastic interview as well, and it's one of those real nostalgia ones because obviously Prof. Mark's no longer a spring chicken.
No. You're not saying he's a mower.
No. But yeah, and back in 2023, also the Misinformation with Gwen Isaacs, director of the amazing movie that she put together with Susie Wiles about her time during those initial days of COVID. And if you have not seen that Misinformation movie, I thoroughly recommend you go and see it, because it is amazing. And it's a documentary, but it's a documentary that is as gripping as any movie you will ever see. It's amazing. It's amazingly put together, and it's a really amazing story. And it's kind of come like just the the Prime Minister movie with Jacinda Ardern coming out now, putting those together, because I think it's very easy for us as a society to want to forget about COVID and what it was like in those early days before the vaccine. And I think actually what's really useful about that misinformation is just purely by chance, and Gwen goes into this in the interview, she was there filming.
That's right.
So she has footage, and that's invaluable, I think, to actually have that footage of events as they're unfolding. And that's, there's no debating it. It's not an issue of opinion. This is what happened. There's video evidence of it there, made into a movie, shot with a director's eye. I think that was definitely one of my favourite interviews. Oh, there's so many amazing interviews here. Don't be offended, anyone, if I skip through and I have not mentioned your interview. Some people have asked me not to mention their interviews, so I'm respecting that a little bit.
No, I'm worried.
No, don't be worried. Just going on that same line, I do really recommend the Aaron Hawkins Chewing Gum and Walking episode. And it's great because, obviously Aaron has his own radio show on Radio 1 at the university there. So he's very used to being on radio, and he's known me for a reasonable amount of time because we're sort of neighbours out there on West Harbour. So...
Actually, Chewing Gum Walking sounds a bit like a Western spoof.
Yeah, it's funny. And he said politics is like chewing gum and walking. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
We're doing two things, like patting your head and rubbing your stomach.
Yeah, apparently it's what people say when they're, doing two things at once, chewing gum and walking. And it does make sense because, and it's classic local government. Like, you can't just be doing one thing. People jump up and down and say, focus on this, but you can't. You still have to pick up the rubbish, and there's so many things that local government does, and central government and regional government, that actually you can't just be doing one thing. Like, you have to do public transport and environment and air pollution and civil emergency and water rescue, air quality. I mentioned air quality, sorry.
And chewing gum and walking is about how I describe my life at this time of the year, because I've got to go A, B, C, D, make my list. Have I got everything I need? What have I got for the cleaner? What have I got for the neighbour down the road? Right, so chewing gum and walking is perfect for Christmas because that's what your life gets a bit like.
Yeah, yes. I suppose that is true. And the last but not least, I think I would give... I don't even know if it's last, actually, but we'll try. I'll give a plug in general to the Royal Society NZ Te Aparangi Awards episodes, because what we did was we had a really nice conversation with the Royal Society, and thank you very much to all those involved with that. And what we were able to do is we were able to find out who the winners would be in advance of it being publicly known. And this allowed us to put together, organise, to have the studio and to have the people here. And that Peter Heenan Award was one of those awards. It was fantastic. All about plants, and I'm sure that people will love that as well. It was a great interview, that, very wide-ranging. Again, someone who's very good at speaking. Natalia Shaban.
On the Ukraine.
On the Ukraine. And we will be playing this again. So there'll be a repeat play of that on the 2nd of January.
Oh, and it's not the Ukraine, it's just Ukraine.
It's just Ukraine. Yeah. And we talk about that a little bit in the show, and it's actually obviously subconsciously just slipped back into bad habits there. Thank you for picking me up on that one. Because the Ukraine kind of gives the impression that it's a region rather than a country.
Yeah.
It is Ukraine.
We don't talk about the New Zealand. We just talk about New Zealand.
The Australia.
Yeah.
No.
So
it's very interesting. Now, we've had another couple just lately. This year we managed to have some talks which were very well attended with Gemma Gagan, I think I've got that right, and Olivia Harrison. And they both both award winners this year in the 2025 awards. They very nicely came along and did episodes with us as well. And of course, we cannot forget the amazing.
Well, they're all amazing.
They were. Yeah. They were really interesting on anxiety, and Olivia was on anxiety, and Gemma was on viruses. Amazing stuff, but very Gemma's.
Oh, one of them was to do
microbes.
Was it stomach cancer or something?
Yes, no. I'm just coming up to the stomach cancer because that's the last of the ones, and I'm just trying to find the date for it. If you keep talking, I will find the date. I would love to have a plug for the Glen Hazelton.
Well, yeah.
Parry Guilford, there you go. Finding a genetic cause for stomach cancer. It slipped down 2 pages. So that was the 25th of the October month, 2024. So it was just last year, not this year. And that was Parry Guilford. And that was him and his partner in crime there, not romantically, businessly, is also a professor now.
A romantic partner in crime.
No. They're separately married happily to other people. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up in that way at all there. Forgive me. Anyway, it was really amazing. And they actually did the joint talk afterwards. And I'm sorry, I have just temporarily, your name has slipped my mind, but I would very much like to get you on the show next year. And what are we talking about next year? We got some good shows lined up?
Oh, I think we do, yeah.
I think some nice exhibition ones, I think. Just highlighting some of the amazing exhibitions that are on, either at Toitu or Tahura, the Otago Museum, or the Public Art Gallery. And we've had a few that have been independent ones as well, around like the Oyster. We had Madison Kelly on talking about her exhibition and as part of the Oyster Project. And I think I'd really like to have someone from the Dream Brokerage come on and talk about their 10 years. They're just celebrating in this I think yesterday was their big celebration.
Right, yeah.
And Craig Scott's very involved in that. So we had him on talking about exhibitions.
Yes.
And we did sort of and ah about which way we were going to go with his interview, and then we thought, no, we'll just save that Dream Brokerage till early next year, and we'll do an interview with them separately for that, because that would be fantastic. But yeah, that Craig Scott interview was amazing as well about exhibitions.
Although I have to keep reminding myself, no, it's not the Craig Scott.
No, it's a different
Well, it's another the Craig Scott.
But I have to say, I did love For the Love of Lepidoptera with Dr. Robert Hoare, because it's always a pleasure to interview Dr. Robert Hoare. And you know how much I like moths.
Yes. So, yeah.
So I do. And I think the most downloaded interviews that we did, which I've cunningly left till last, were the Coping with Dementia series with Yoram Barrick. Yeah. I think they were the most downloaded episodes that we had.
Okay.
And they were packed full of information that was quite useful, and I'm sure something that touches lots of families and that comes to the fore around this time in the holidays. So just a shout out there to anyone who has loved ones who may be going through dementia, or maybe
any challenges
health-wise. And there are lots of organisations out there that can offer help. And sometimes it's just having someone to talk to, or someone having the same experiences as you. So, I think that's really useful. And what's helped me a lot through the last couple of years is actually a Facebook group for carers and people who have family that have dementia, and just hearing other people's stories and, just daily struggles. And sometimes you can say, oh, actually, I know how to do that thing. I know how to navigate that banking system. This is what you need to take, and this is what, and it just sort of gives you a little bit of a lift, because you're like,
I'm not alone.
And just helping someone else's hard week be slightly less hard is sometimes one of the better things that you can do and have as a feeling. I think it's quite. I think brings us right back to Christmas and what Christmas is all about. But, sometimes just sharing a little bit of things, I don't know, that we've learned or have helped us in some way get through, or I don't know.
Yeah, or even just saying, oh, look, so I wasn't that dumb after all because they've had the same challenge. So it's not me necessarily.
I think there's also there's lots of complicated and complex emotions that come with, especially intergenerational things, and I think that is hard work, and it's hard on families, and some people, there's so much kind of built-in baggage in almost everyone's family.
If there's a family that doesn't really built-in baggage, I'm sure they're lying. They just haven't talked about it.
And there's some quote, and I have no idea who said it, but I think the quote goes something along the lines of dysfunctional families are much more interesting than functional ones, because there's really only one way to be functional, but you can be dysfunctional in just so many different ways.
That's so true.
Anyway, that's all we have time for, folks. Thank you very much for sticking with us throughout the year. Thank you very much for Trudi for coming on as co-host.
Barb.
It's been a fantastic year, we wish everyone
and their dysfunctional families
fantastic. Yeah, a break.
Yeah.
Be good to yourselves. Be kind for yourselves and your family. It's a very stressful time for a lot of people. All that goodwill and happiness and cheer. Not everyone's feeling the happiness and cheer. So, give yourself a break and let yourself go for a calm walk and be thankful for the things that we're thankful for.
Exactly.
I'm thankful for COVID vaccines so that we can have Christmas and get together and go to funerals.
Yes, and be thankful for them. Yeah,
for all those people that have touched our lives over the last year and before that. Ka kite.
Matiwa.
Podcast, the shout out for the arts, sciences and mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI podcast on OAR FM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.